Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a brand new edition of the Pewter Pregame Show, brought to you by our friends over at Walk-Ons. We are going to break down Bucs versus Raiders in this Sunday morning show. I'm your host, Matt Matera. Joined with me is the face that runs the place at PewterReport.com. It's SR, Scott Reynolds. Scott, this is another great opportunity for the Bucs to keep their winning streak going.
Yeah, it really is. And more importantly, Matt, this is an opportunity to win a game at home. This team is 2-4 at home and 4-2 on the road.
At home.
They've lost 3 straight. So this is a game where they really have to have a lot of things come together. And more importantly, they get this win today, Matt. I think everybody knows the Atlanta Falcons are playing at Minnesota today. It's going to be a game where either Kirk Cousins throws for like 4 touchdowns or 4 more interceptions. I think it's going to be a boom or bust game for him returning back to Minnesota. But if the Falcons continue to falcon and lose their 4th straight game, at 4 o'clock today, we could see the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in sole possession of the NFC South lead.
And that's so funny to say because it was like, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I was on this exact show, and I was angry, and I was like, I'm not going to talk about the Bucs winning the division until, they prove it and they show it. And they are proving it, granted, against bad teams. But the Falcons are really the ones that are, bringing the Bucs up to, the level that we want to see. So
that's right.
I think that would be fantastic. Part of me feels, though, that it's not going to be a cakewalk for the Bucs. I feel like, at some point the Falcons have to show up. At the same time, did we not learn our lesson from Derek Carr the year before with the Saints and, seeing it play once again in real time with Kirk Cousins? But regardless, this is a great opportunity for the Buccaneers. They're playing a 2-win Las Vegas Raiders team that they should, I'm not going to say dominate, but they should. The score by the 3rd and 4th quarter should not be within question. The Bucs should be well ahead. With the same sentiment, we could have said the same thing about the Panthers, and we saw how that game went.
Yeah, but to be fair, Matt, I think give us a little bit of credit because you and I both said this Panthers team is better than the record indicates. This is not going to be like the 30-7 cakewalk over the Giants, which actually I thought was going to be a little bit closer. So this should be, I think, somewhere in between the Giants and the Panthers game. I don't think it's going to be a blowout necessarily. It could be. It should be. I'm with you. But I don't think it's going to be as close as it was last week. So that's the thing. This Raiders team, they've lost 8 straight. They've got 2 wins on the season. Kind of like, they have a lot of talent to begin with. But this is kind of evidence why you don't hire the interim head coach, right, from the previous year. He won over the locker room and all that stuff. Okay, fine. Antonio Pierce was 5-4 as the coach last year in the interim fashion, right? When Josh McDaniels was fired. And I don't think that being 1 game over 500 is anything to throw a parade about. But yet the Raiders continue to make really bad decisions with their coaches and all of that. And let's face it, they don't have a quarterback, right? Gardner Minshew, before he went into reserve, 9 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. He wasn't the answer. They've tried with Jimmy Garoppolo. The best quarterback on the Raiders is actually one of their owners, Tom Brady. Okay, I mean, let's face it, he's the best guy in the building, but he's not going to play. So having said that, Aiden O'Connell, who I kind of liked at Purdue, he's a kind of a gutsy gamer, maybe not as turnover prone as Gardner Minshew. 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions in his limited playing time this year. Got some starts last year as a rookie. But they just don't have a lot of talent. They've got Brock Bowers on offense, Jacoby Myers if he plays today. They cannot run the ball. Alexander Mattson, there's no running back on this team, on this Raiders team, that has more than 320 yards rushing. On defense, it's Max Crosby, Robert Spillane. They just don't have a lot of talent. So they're probably closer to the Giants in that respect, but they're playing harder now, and we've seen that. Maybe it's just the Raider hater mentality with Kansas City and the Raiders. That is a vicious rivalry. I grew up in Kansas City. Mm-hmm. We had Raider hater week. It is a thing. The Raiders and Chiefs hate each other. And maybe because of that, we've seen 2 close games, 27-20 out there in Las Vegas. Patrick Mahomes got the better of them. And then in Arrowhead on Black Friday, Raiders probably could have and should have won that game, but they lost at 19-17. But my point is, Antonio Pierce has this Raiders team playing harder than maybe Brian Daboll had that Giants team up there. So they're going to play hard, but I don't think they have the talent to overcome Tampa Bay. Now the only thing is, I'll preface you and I'll let you make your point here, but the Bucs are really banged up, and we'll get to that in just a second.
Yeah. Yeah, really all I was going to say is I think the biggest difference is, and this is a credit to Antonio Pierce. You can, look at his win-loss record, and, I'm not going to really disagree with that. But the Raiders, despite having only 2 wins, they give a damn. They give a damn, and they try, and they, they work hard every single week, and just.
Bless you.
Sorry, excuse me. And yeah, like they care. They just they don't get it together. And Aiden O'Connell, I've always liked him because going back to the combine a couple of years ago, he had a really thorough and thoughtful response to like what would it be like playing for the Bucs behind Tom Brady.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I always respected him for his long and thorough answer to what that would be like. So not that I'm like rooting for him to go crazy today, but I just. The NFL is a tough place to play. It's a tough place to win as well.
That's right.
And even though this should be a cakewalk for the Buccaneers, I'm not saying like it's going to come down to an overtime field goal the way that it did last week, but I just think that the Bucs shouldn't overlook their opponent because I don't think they can do it for the rest of the season.
I agree.
Even though the Raiders have 2 wins, they can't look it over too.
No, you're exactly right. And we've said it before. It bears repeating. This is a must-win game for the Buccaneers.
Yes, it is.
Every game here on out, you're going to see this, folks. It's must-win. Especially, Matt, if this team gets the win today, coupled with the Falcons' loss, they will be in control of their own destiny for the first time all season, really. All they have to do is win out from this point on. If they win today, it's going to be a bit of a tall task to go into LA next week and beat the Chargers. But should they do that and run the table the rest of the way with the game at Dallas and 2 games to finish the season at home against a feisty Dave Canales Panthers team again in week 17, and then a rock'em sock'em NFC South showdown to end the season at Raymond James Stadium, week 18 against the punky, spunky New Orleans Saints. Should they run the table, if they get the win coupled with the Falcons' loss, they will be NFC South champions again because they'll continue to have a leg up on the Falcons. Folks, you want question? You have answers. Sorry, let me rephrase that. We have answers to your questions. There we go. I've not finished my Celsius this morning, so please forgive me, but I'm about to. And some of those questions are involving injuries. We've had some injury updates throughout the weekend, including one yesterday afternoon and the evening. Let's get you caught up. The latest injury update is on pewterreport.com. I just dropped it in the chat here. The nuts and bolts of it is this. We're down to 3 players that are questionable. The players that have already been ruled out, and there are several that have been ruled out. Let's go through those quickly. There were 4 players listed as ruled out for the game. And then there were 3 more yesterday. The 3 additional players that were ruled out: cornerback Josh Hayes, linebacker J.J. Russell, outside linebacker Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. They were all downgraded from questionable to out for the game. Matt, once again, we have had the Friday injury bug hit this team. It's crazy.
I don't know how it's possible.
I know. It continues to happen. On Friday, linebacker KJ Britt, safety Mike Edwards, cornerback Troy Hill, and outside linebacker Marquise Watts were declared out. Watts is still coming back from that knee injury. He has been practicing the last 2 weeks, but he is not signed to the active roster just yet. But we had a couple more of those Friday afternoon hamstring injuries. So we're down to 3 players now listed as questionable for the game. And what Pewter Report has reported this morning, due to my sources, Tyke Smith will be a game time decision yet again. Tyke Smith hasn't played since the Kansas City game where he forced a fumble against Travis Kelce. Why is that important? Because Tyke Smith could be guarding and defending Brock Bowers today, a player he knows intimately well from his time in Georgia, where they won a national championship together, actually, too. So with Tyke Smith, this team has some issues at safety now with Jordan Whitehead out and Mike Edwards out. You'd love to have Tyke Smith be able to go today, but from what I've been told, that is a game-time decision. The good news for the Buccaneers is the other two players, Bucky Irving, questionable with the back and hip injury. He will play today. Mm-hmm. And Trey Palmer with the hip injury will also play. So Palmer, Bucky Irving are a go. Tyke Smith, game time decision. So Eric Moreno for your $2 super chat. Any updates on Tyke Smith? There you go.
Yeah, good to know. I was very curious as well just this week. I mean, I think a lot of us knew, pretty much all of us knew with the Raiders, it's stop Max Crosby on the Bucs offensive side, and on the defensive side, contain Brock Bowers as much as you possibly could. And I was very curious, like, how do they go about that? Do they go with Tyke Smith and do Georgia on Georgia, or, a brief Georgia time on Georgia? Do you go linebacker, whatever the case may be? But inside linebacker is, and I know nobody loved the, original inside linebacker that would have been playing outside of Lavonte David. Of course, Bucs fans love Lavonte David, but
KJ Britt, sorry, not a fan.
No KJ Britt, no JJ Russell either. So, you can say what you want about you don't like certain aspects of the game of KJ and JJ, but now the Bucs are very, very thin, Scott, when it comes to inside linebacker. And so they're going to have Vi Jones, they're going to have Antonio Greer Jr. as well. So we'll see if anybody can make a name for themselves in this game specifically, because who knows down the stretch, like who's going to be available, who's going to be needed / wanted. Yeah. But that's certainly, I mean, if you're the Raiders, that's like one of the first positions that you have to go and attack if you're going into this game.
Yeah. Wait, Matt, if you go back to the game against the Carolina Panthers last year, right, where the Buccaneers, they were already down Servassier Dennis, Devin White was out. They had Lavonte David. KJ Britt played in that game. Actually, Lavonte David was out as well. KJ Britt played in that game, and the Heat got injured like 9 plays into the game, right? And then they had JJ Russell come in, and they had to move Ryan Neal down to the linebacker level to play. So they finished that game with 1 linebacker that's healthy. They have 3 to start this game. You have Vi Jones, who will be starting, Antonio Greer, who'll be the backup between Lavonte David and Jones, and then, of course, Lavonte. So if there's an injury to one of those guys, they're down to 2 linebackers today. That's it. If there's an injury to 2 of those players, they're down to 1. And even though they signed Ryan Neal, he is on the practice squad, so you can't even do what you did last year in that emergency situation. And then it's going to make it tough to even go dime because you don't have Edwards, you don't have Whitehead, and if Tyke Smith doesn't go, I don't know. And then here's the other X factor. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka is a player that has played at the linebacker level and can cover and is an athlete and is fast. So he would be like an emergency inside linebacker in a pinch. The problem, though, is, Matt, is he's out today. I mean, not that I'm like too concerned about that, because I'd rather see Anthony Nelson start with Chris Braswell and Jose Ramirez as the backups at this point. But it's going to be very tenuous with their linebacking core and their safeties because they just don't have a lot.
No, they don't. And interesting with JTS as well. He's not playing, but looking at the snaps and how the Bucs went about it last week, Yaya Diaby played 93% of the snaps. That was the most snaps percentage-wise that he's ever played in his career. And
that's right.
They relied a lot on Anthony Nelson. Of course, he made the big play. He was the hero. But they did not tap into their other outside linebackers. Like Chris Braswell played 22%. Jose Ramirez played 5 snaps. So I'm curious if they'll do that again or if they put in a little bit of trust to some of their other outside linebackers. But
yeah,
that remains to be seen. We got a couple of super chats to get to, so let's start it off with Bucs Basement. Thank you for the $4.99 super chat. Says, to be honest, all these games are meaningless because it's against bad teams. It's putting lipstick on a pig, but if we get to the playoffs, you can't hide the pig.
That's true, but they're not meaningless because you got to win these games to get to the playoffs, right? And I will say this, Matt, it's been, it's been a while since the Buccaneers have had what someone might call a quality win, but let's not forget the Bucs are the only team to beat the Detroit Lions. And they did that.
No one else can say that. No one else in the league can say that they beat the Lions.
And not just that, but 2 weeks after that, they beat the Philadelphia Eagles, only one of 2 teams to beat the Eagles. And they actually trounced the Eagles. So let's give this team some credit when it's fully loaded, when it's healthy. And let's also remember that this team did beat the Washington Commanders, who are still in the mix for a playoff spot right now. So having said that, when this team is healthy and the game management decisions are correct and the personnel usage is correct, when this team has the green light in a lot of areas, it's really, really good. It is. It's just that the injuries have curtailed this team at certain times, at certain positions, coupled with a couple of questionable personnel decisions from the coaches, personnel usage decisions, and also clock management, game management. So, but when this team is hitting on all cylinders, it is a playoff caliber team. It is a team that can do some damage in the playoffs. I'm not saying Super Bowl contender. I think that's next year. But listen, once you get in, anything can happen, right? And I think this is a team that if they catch fire, I've always said, winning the Super Bowl takes 2 things: momentum down the stretch and good health. And Lord knows the Buccaneers have not had good health this year. So I think that's going to be the ultimate barrier for this team going all the way. But can they get in the playoffs? Yes. Can they do some damage when they get there? We'll see.
Right. They're trying to get one of the 2 with momentum, and they have a little bit of momentum. They've won 2 games in a row. And sure, it's against lesser teams, but you can only play who you play on the schedule. And, who's to say if Chris Godwin was healthy, do they beat the Chiefs? Do they beat, some of the teams that they struggled against, before getting on that run against the Giants? And speaking of Chris Godwin, Laura of Lucas with the $2 super chat, thank you very much, says Mayfield jersey or Godwin shirt for the readout. This is a good question. And you know what? I'm very happy that the Bucs are at least wearing the damn red jerseys. It's the only second time this season. It's December, and it's the second time that they're wearing their red jersey. And they're going with the Pewter pants, of course.
Thank you.
Replicate. I mean, they wear it. I can't even say all the time because they don't wear it all the time.
Right.
But it's one of their signature logos. It's what they wore when they won the first Super Bowl against the Raiders. I would say go with Mayfield, with no disrespect to Chris Godwin. Mayfield's playing in this game. He's starting in this game. If Chris Godwin was playing in this game, I would have a little bit of a different feeling about it. But listen, Baker needs a bounce back game. I think he was pretty bad in last week's game against Carolina. He made up for it with the late drive in regulation,
right?
With getting the team into field goal range in overtime. So Baker needs a bounce back game, and if that means you, Laura of Lucas, wears a Baker Mayfield jersey and helps him, then so be it. But I would go with Baker.
I'm with you. That's spot on analysis, man. That's for sure.
Thank you. Paul Connor, thank you for the $5 super chat. We appreciate it. Says, who or what do you guys think it will take to get this defense going, aside from keeping all 11 healthy? Big game from Winfield or David? Go Bucs.
Yeah, I think so. I think takeaways, Matt. I think we have not seen an interception by this team since week 6, right? At New Orleans, right? I mean,
interception. Yeah,
it's been so long. I can't remember the last time. I think that's the last time. No, I'm kidding. I know. We know when it was. It was Tyke Smith against the Saints, but it's been that long. So I would say yes, interceptions would be great. Turnovers do come in bunches. That's the old saying. this team is, you can't even use the word drought. This is just a desert, basically, for the team getting interceptions, right? I mean, Kevin Ross can talk such a big game. I'm sorry. I hope that he's fired. I hope that George Edwards is fired. There are some coaches on this defensive staff that absolutely have to go. For him to sit there and say, we want our guys catching 50 balls every day in the offseason. 50 balls hasn't done jack, you know what? Squat. Yeah. Okay. But I want to use a stronger word. This is a family program. No, not 50 balls. How about 150? How about 350 passes on the Jugs machine? Okay. Because this team cannot catch a cold, let alone an interception. So, yeah, I think interceptions are what's needed. I think better coaching is absolutely needed. I mean, we're not going to get it right now because we're in season, but this team needs some better defensive coaches to get more sacks from the outside linebacker position, and Lord knows to get more interceptions from the cornerback position or the safety position as well. So if Todd Bowles does stay next year, and me personally, I don't care if he does or not, because, you know, my last name isn't Blazer or Light or, you know, whatever. I like Todd. I have a lot of respect for him. If he stays as head coach, he needs to make some changes on the defensive staff. Get rid of his cronies. Get rid of his long-term friends and in the business, and actually get some guys that can coach and develop some of these players on defense. I'm sick and tired of saying it, but it's the truth.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, at the end of the season, however it ends up going for the Bucs, Todd Bowles can't, you know, take a step back, look at the big picture, and be like, we have no issues on defense.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, clearly, there's been you know, a lot of things going on. So
right.
It's gonna have to make those adjustments. Kyle Driver, thank you for the $5 super chat. Says, I'm enjoying the season. However, how many years do we accept barely getting past the divisional round or having to run the table? What's the fix? Yeah, I think that's, again, like pretty much everything we were just talking about with Todd Bowles. I think that's a big question into it. Like, if they win out, it's tough to fire a coach that just won 11 wins, but at the same time, he does it in such a frustrating way. I shouldn't say just him, Todd Bowles, but the team itself. They do it in such a frustrating way where, you know, you go on this winning streak, then you lose a bunch of games, and you end up winning a bunch of games as well. It's not good for the mental health of the fan base.
Well said, Matt. I think I've got a new nickname for Todd Bowles. Barely. Todd Barely Bowles. They barely get in the playoffs. They barely win. You know, they barely win the division. These types of things. So, to me, you know, we saw remarkable improvement on the offense in one off season, right? New coaching staff comes in, new offensive coordinator, new system. Like leaps and bounds to go from 21 points per game to 30 points per game, right? Or 28, whatever it is right now. A huge improvement on the offensive line, right? Huge improvement in terms of getting some good running backs in this team and playing them. It can be done. Coaching matters. If it didn't, there wouldn't be coaches. It would just be players and then just line up and play. But coaching matters at every level. Pop Warner, high school, college, pro, it matters. It makes a difference in terms of player development, in terms of scheme, in all those things. So it's important, just as important as our friends over at Walk-Ons, who remind us that the spread for the game today is Tampa Bay -6.5. Matt, you are the author, the editor, the purveyor, the grand poobah, the guru of Matt's Pewter Picks and Props. What say you, our resident gaming expert, about that line?
Yeah, I think this is a reasonable line. If you look at the betting history of the Raiders specifically, they've only covered when it comes to the spread. The over/under is a little bit of a different story, but when it comes to the spread itself, they've only covered like once or twice. So the Bucs to be at home, even though they haven't played that well at home, to be up by essentially a touchdown. I would say it checks out. I would lean in that direction as well, because again, like we talked about before, I don't think Baker Mayfield has a repeat performance of what he did against the Panthers for the first, 55 minutes of the game versus the final, essentially 15 or whatever it was. So yeah, -6.5. When I saw it, I was like, okay, this makes sense.
Yeah, I've already smashed that line myself. So
there you go.
We shall see. Folks, if you're looking to smash some good food before the game or even after the game, right? Because you can celebrate a win at Walk-Ons just as much as you can pregame at Walk-Ons. But Walk-Ons is the place to go.
Game day at Walk-Ons is just different. And it starts with the way our teammates prep each dish from our scratch menu. No shortcuts. We are hand cutting every single mozzarella log straight from the block. Hand peeling, stuffing, and bacon wrapping each voodoo shrimp. Hand carving ribeyes for our steaks and po' boys. And hand slicing, then tossing our boneless wings and our house-made sauces. With wall-to-wall TVs and food like this, why would you want to watch anywhere else? That's game day. The Walk-Ons way.
I got to say, I think Drew Brees has turned the corner. I think he has gone from the dark side to the light. I think he is a Buccaneer fan. He pays us to promote walk-ons in the Tampa area and to tell you that there are 3 locations to go to: Lakeland, Wesley Chapel up here in my neck of the woods, and Midtown Tampa, which will be live today, just down the street from the stadium, down there where Matt Matera lives. Make sure you get to Walk-Ons. You can check out their full menu and driving directions at walkons.com. But let me tell you, they have some game day specials Saturdays and Sundays. Pints $4.49, 22-ounce pours $5.99 of Michelob Ultra, Bud Light, and Budweiser. $5 Heineken Silver, 12-ounce cans, $5 neutral, assorted flavors. And you know what, Matt? Let's just make it a Victory Monday, right? We've done that the last 2 weeks. It's fun. If you want to make it a Victory Monday tomorrow, you can do that. And you can enjoy happy hour from 3 p.m. to close. That means you can also watch Monday Night Football there and get some great drink and food specials. $3 happy hour pours, $3.99 domestic pints, $4 house wines, $5.49 22-ounce domestic drafts, and a bunch of inflation-busting starters. $6 fried pickles and small waffle cheese fries, $7 boom boom shrimp and queso dip, $8 boneless wings, and my favorite, the cheeseburger sliders. Can't make it to Walk-Ons tomorrow? Fine. Walk-Ons has all-day happy hour on Tuesdays, including $5 Tito's, plus more happy hours Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Walk-Ons. It's a place to go for football and food and fun. And if you haven't been, make this week the week you try it. Phenomenal food.
This is the week to do it, where they're playing the Raiders. I mean, where else are you going to get a more winnable game for the Buccaneers besides that Giants game a couple weeks ago?
Yeah.
Before we get into the matchup, we still got a number of super chats to get to. So thank you, everybody, for super chatting this morning. We appreciate it. Bucs Basement with $1.99 super chat. Thank you. Says, took over Bowers yards 65 and Rashad carries at 9+. I love the Bowers pick. That was one of my picks in Peter picks and props as well. I think he's going to run roughshod on the Buccaneers defense. And Rachaad White with the carries is very interesting because, as you said earlier on the show, Bucky Irving is going to play, but he is nursing a hip injury and a back injury. Do they curtail the number of his rushing attempts? I mean, he had 25. That was a career high last week. But besides last week, him and Rashad are roughly around the same, like 12 rushing attempts, 15, wherever the case may be. So I do like that number for Rachaad White as well. So we'll see.
It's not that Bucky's going to be in a pitch count, but at any point in time, that hip injury may flare up again. Remember, he had the hip injury right before halftime on that kickoff return, played the entire second half, had over 100 yards in the second half, including that 46-yard jaunt, but then was unable to go in overtime, right? When the game really mattered, that hip injury blew up again. So that's the key thing. If he re-aggravates that injury, this might turn into the Rachaad White show and, after that period of time.
Yeah, it absolutely could. So, something to pay attention to. Another thing to pay attention to, as Laura Lucas gives a $2 super chat. Thank you, Laura Lucas. Says, anyone else waiting to see Vita with the ball? I get a burst of, excitement when I see Vita Vea in the game on offense at fullback. I get excited when he's in the game on defense as well. He's a great player. But, it's a special thing. And, again, I'll never forget because I was in Atlanta when Vita Vea scored his receiving touchdown. And to hear, you're not supposed to cheer in the press box and all that stuff, but to hear, the gasps and the oh my gods as Vita Vea scored a touchdown.
Yes.
It's something I'll never forget.
It's coming. I don't know if it's going to be a carry or a catch, but whether it's today or against the Chargers, I don't know. I think it's coming because, he's in there, right, as a blocker.
Yeah.
We know he's a great athlete. We know he can catch the ball. So, I got to think that that's in there. Yeah, I've done the same thing the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I have taken.
I did it last week.
Yeah. So
Them apples 55
Yeah.
$1.99 super chat says took Vita plus 5,000 if I'm reading that right.
Yeah.
For touchdown. Go Bucs. It doesn't hurt to sprinkle a little bit on it because the odds are so high, and for a defensive player to score a touchdown and whatever site you use, having that for a defensive player, but knowing that he plays a little bit of offense.
Yeah. It's a little bit of a cheat code.
It's fantastic. So yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So hopefully it happens this week. Q's 44. Thank you for the $2 super chat. Excuse me. Says draft Kyle McCord 3rd, 5th round. Nice pick. Maybe, I don't know. I haven't looked much into. I gotta thank Kyle McCord for beating Miami the other day weeks ago or whenever it was, because that helped my wallet specifically. But we got plenty of time to get into draft time for sure.
Yeah, of course, he has the Syracuse quarterback, Kyle McCord, he was talking about. Yeah.
He's 813. Thank you for the $5 super chat. Says not sure what happened. Great to see you back, SR. Yes, it's always welcome, England.
Yeah, last week it was incredibly tough for my family. Lost my father-in-law up in Georgia. Kind of suddenly went into the hospital, and then my ex-wife, mother of my kids, had a stroke the day before Thanksgiving. So it has been a very trying time, and she's alive and in intensive care. And listen, I'm a believer in the power of prayer. So if you got him for me, I'll take him. My family will take him. So it's been incredibly trying and tough. And I just want to say, big time props and salutations to Matt Matera, Bailey Adams, Adam Slice, Lavon, and Josh Capo for keeping the show rolling. I haven't had the time really to dive into any Pewter Pulses over the last week or so, as well as SR's Fab 5. I always usually take Black Friday off anyways, but we didn't have one last week. I was able to crank out some content for you guys. But I have some of those more, Scott Reynolds-esque content for you guys coming up with an SR's Fab 5 on deck this Friday, as well as some Pewter Pulses coming your way. So greatly appreciate the PR crew for just keeping this Pewter train rolling. And you guys did a great job. And I'm going to be at the game today. And Matt and I, we've got the Pewter Report's post-game podcast coming up.
We do.
At around 5-ish, after the game. But one thing we do want to tell you is coming up at 1 o'clock. We have Pewter Game Day, Matt.
Yes, very excited for it. Myself and Josh Capo, and Josh was on the show on Thursday. He was also on the Pewter Insider for those that were watching that show as well. Me and Josh do it every single week. Sometimes Josh is at the game, so we have other guests and things like that. But yeah, we give our live reactions, analysis, thoughts on literally every single play that happens in the game. This week, Bucs versus Raiders. We're super interactive with everybody in the comments as well. So yeah, if you plan on watching the Bucs game, which if you're watching the show, I imagine you're going to watch the Bucs game at 1 o'clock, tune in, just hop on YouTube or go to pewterreport.com. There's several different ways that you could find us on Twitter and Instagram as well. And yeah, join myself and Josh for the Pewter Game Day show at 1 o'clock. It's always a good time. It's better when the Bucs win, but we make it fun regardless. And very much looking forward to another Pewter Game Day show today at 1 o'clock.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah,
all right.
More super chats. We're going to get into our previews here. We're just putting it off a little bit because you know the rules. When you super chat us, we answer those questions. So,
especially when it's a 1999 super chat. So thank you to Scotty J. Says, thanks for the job you do for us Bucs fans. Looking forward and to flying in for a meetup or two.
That's right.
First one in February, I think you said. Have a day, Bucs.
Yep. Scotty J, one of our Pewter Platinum members. We greatly appreciate all of our Pewter Reports channel members, including those Pewter Platinum members with their $24.99 per month support for us. That's greatly appreciated. And
Yes,
this is the month of December, so we do have some PR merch going out. We'll be in contact with you guys about your addresses and sizes and all those kind of things. But we have the Pewter Reports, a merchandise care package for you guys that'll be going out just in time for the holidays. So we'll be in contact. But we appreciate the kind words and the support, Scotty J.
Yes, thank you.
Very much so. Yep.
Yeah, thank you very much, Scotty J. And then Marcos with the $4.99 super chat. Thank you, Marcos. Says, bit of a hot take, but dang, I love the grit this team has. I know I'm biased, but the passion they play with most of the time makes being a fan so fun. So I think this boils down to embodying the grit and the feeling and I don't know what else you want to call it, but essentially of what Baker Mayfield has.
Yeah.
And, Baker Mayfield, who got his calf stepped on, but then in the waning moments of the game where you need to get into field goal position, he sprints for that first down, reaches the ball out, gets the first down, gets out of bounds. This team is gritty, and I think it starts with their quarterback.
No, you're right. The never say die attitude of Baker Mayfield, even when it looks bleak, right? This guy
that looks bleak right there.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. But like, he fights, man. He stiff arms Nick Bosa, and he just refuses to go out even when he's hurt. He comes back. Sometimes he throws an interception, but it's guys like him. It's feel good stories like Anthony Nelson, right? Tackling the ball right here. God, I love that. What a great picture. Hand right on the ball, getting ready to rip it out of Chuba Hubbard's hands. The Panthers, remember, folks, they were in field goal range right there. They were in field goal range. Yeah.
I was giving the eulogy on the game day show last week.
Yep. Anthony Nelson rips that out. Yaya Diaby with the fumble recovery just in time, celebrating there with Kalijah Kancey. There's the ball on the ground. Get a Yaya. See? So, this team has some players that really, we get to know them in the locker room. And a bunch of great guys, like there's some really good guys, like Zion McCollum, like one of the nicest guys in the world, friend of the program, right? Yaya Diaby, friend of the program. These guys play hard, they try hard, they care. I do think they need another ass kicker on this team. I do think they need a fire starter. Antoine Winfield Jr., nice guy. Tristan Wirfs, nice guy. These are guys that you would invite to your wedding or a party. I mean, just like really good dudes worth rooting for. And I think that's what makes this team fun too, is they do care. They do play with grit. They do have determination. And you're right, Matt. It really starts with Baker Mayfield. And it started as something you and I noticed the very first OTA that when he came in, not this past offseason, but the offseason before, he came in from the very first practice and decided to do calisthenics right in the heart of those defensive players. And he didn't want to be just the captain of the offense, the leader of the offense. He wanted to be the captain and the leader of this team. And he ingratiated himself to not just the offensive players, but the defensive players too. It has made a difference.
It's funny because Kyle Trask came into that last game in Bucs versus Panthers briefly. He made a cameo. And obviously Dave Canales being there for the Panthers. And I was kind of like, oh, yeah, remember that time that there was a quarterback competition for the Bucs last year?
Yeah.
And it was like that competition, it felt like it was won before anyone threw a pass, just because the way that Baker, immersed himself into the team.
Yep.
So and now they're all speaking his language essentially.
That's right.
Thank you to Joel Elrican, who's now a member for 4 months. You're one of our top
awesome.
Pewter
Thank you so much,
Report
Joel.
YouTube channel members. So thank you very much. Who says good morning and happy game day. Go Bucs.
Appreciate it.
Go Bucs. For you specifically, Joel, I hope the Bucs win. Mike Post, thank you for the $4.99 super chat. Says good morning. Looking forward to the game as always. I think we should lessen Bucky's workload. We're going to need him for our later playoff push. Scott, your thoughts on that?
I would love to see some Sean Tucker today. And when would we see Sean Tucker? Well, how about in the first half, the Buccaneers jump out to a lead. They're running Bucky, right? He helps them get the lead. The Bucky chant echoing through Raymond James Stadium. He gets a touchdown, hits those numbers for all of the bettors out there and the fantasy football fans that want him to hit certain numbers. And then he sits out the second half. And then he just turns the game over to Rachaad White, Rashad can do his thing, and Sean Tucker can get some carries and do his thing. And let's not forget, Sean Tucker really owned the fourth quarter of that Saints game when they had the lead and they just salted it away. He was ripping off big runs. He came in fresh and all that. So I'd love to see that play out where you have 3 running backs with 50 yards or more today and really be able to run away with a win in the second half after building a lead at halftime.
Yeah, in a perfect world, I would love Bucky to run 25 times. I'd even say, screw it, run him 30 times. But you have to factor in, like, he is a tinier guy. He takes on a lot of, granted, the running back position, you take on a lot of hits. So if it's going to keep him injured, well, no Bucky Irving doesn't work. So I'd rather have some of Bucky Irving than no of Bucky Irving. So, if you only want to run him 15 times versus 25, I can live with it. But that's why you have the depth. Rachaad White is really good in his own capacity. And Sean Tucker won an Offensive Player of the Week, much like, he got it first, and then Bucky Irving got it last week. So there's no doubt that they have very capable running backs. Scott, why don't we get to these matchups that
let's do it.
We've been waiting to get to. Starting off, Bucs offense against the Raiders defense. We'll start with the offensive line. Left tackle Tristan Wirfs against defensive end Tyree Wilson. Is there any world in which Tristan Wirfs does not win this matchup?
I don't think so. Tyree Wilson's a first-round pick from Texas Tech. Big, athletic, physical guy, 6'6", 280 pounds. But Tristan Wirfs showed over the last couple of weeks, certainly last week, where he came out, on an injured leg and played and looked like he wasn't injured at all. Played pretty flawlessly. So I do like Tristan Wirfs in this. I think this is just a matchup where Wirfs is getting better, getting a little bit healthier, and Tyree Wilson is a good but not great player.
I think Todd Bowles said it great this week where he said Tristan Wirfs on one leg is better than most people on 2 legs. Spot on there. Running back Bucky Irving versus Robert Spillane. I think if Bucky Irving is healthy, you take the nod to Bucky. But what are your thoughts, Scott?
Yeah, the thing with Robert Spillane is not a great athlete at all. Very instinctive player. Good tackler. When I say good tackler, he has 111 tackles this year. And the next closest Raider is Trayvon Moehrig, their safety, who has 76. So there's a huge differential in terms of tackles between the leading tackler and the second guy. So what he does is he goes, tackle to tackle, plays the box really well, and he'll make his tackles. He's had double-digit tackles in most of the games this year. But what does Bucky Irving do better than every other running back in the league? He makes you miss. And if you're not athletic, he makes you pay. And so I'm going to take Bucky Irving, even with that injured hip today, over Robert Spillane. Spillane might end up with 10 tackles in this game just because the Bucs are going to try to run the ball down the Raiders' throat. And I think that's the right approach. But Bucky Irving, I think, is going to make Robert Spillane miss a few times and really, I think, rip off another 30-yard plus run today.
Yeah, and if Spillane's making the tackle 20 yards down the field, that's a win for the Bucs.
Right.
Have 100 tackles for all the Bucs care.
Exactly.
If that's be the case. Probably the top matchup that Bucs fans will worry about, just based on the caliber of the player that you see on the screen. And I'm not talking about Patrick Mahomes. Max Crosby against Luke Goedeke. I think we got to tip our cap to Luke Goedeke. He's gone up over the last 2 years. He's gone up against some really good pass rushers, but this is the cream of the crop, really, when it comes to top level pass rushers. So, how do you see this one playing out?
I got to give a lot of respect to Max Crosby. I think he's 7.5 sacks this year, leads the Raiders. Not having that huge dynamic year in terms of stats, but he's relentless, just like you saw in that picture of him chasing down Patrick Mahomes. He gets sacks by beating you off the snap, either with moves or with power or with quickness. But then he also gets those chase sacks, Matt. He gets the sacks where he is just so relentless. He keeps coming that if you don't finish blocks, if you don't go to the whistle, He'll eventually beat you. And Baker Mayfield, get the ball out quickly, son. That's the best advice I can give you because Max Crosby's coming. That's a long way of saying I'm going to give this a push only because I respect Luke Gedeke. I think he's up for this. I don't think that he played Max Crosby because Crosby's been in the league, more than a minute. But this is kind of like a MAC battle here, right? Central Michigan versus Eastern Michigan, right? Michigan. Yeah. So I think that this is going to be a push. Crosby might get a sack today, but if he gets one, it's only one, and it's just going to be because he won a particular play. I like Luke Gedeke's feistiness. I think he's up for the challenge. So I'm going to say this is a push.
Yeah, the last time the Bucs played the Raiders, it was the 2020 Super Bowl winning season, and Luke Gedeke was still in college at Central Michigan. So, I don't think they have matched up before. And great deal of respect for Max Crosby, and I think part of it is, whether it's Crosby or someone like Myles Garrett as well, where like they're on bad football teams, and when you're on a losing football team, you're typically behind in games where the team's going to run the ball or they're not going to throw it a crazy amount, and they still find a way to get after the quarterback. With that said, Luke Gedeke, he's a beast in his own right. He might not be Tristan Wirfs, but he's a hell of a player. So I agree with you with a push on that one. Next up, Baker Mayfield against Trevon Moehrig, who you just mentioned a moment ago. In my opinion, I think this is a bounce-back game for Baker Mayfield, so I'm going to take Baker just based on, again, intestinal fortitude and, his overall, mindset for the whole team, not just himself. But what do you think about this one?
Listen, the key stat in this game is the Raiders are minus 18 in turnover margin. That is dead last in the league. Tampa Bay, by comparison, is -1. The Raiders are minus 18. Why are they minus 18? Because they have forced one fumble this year and have 0 fumble recoveries. 0. And they have only picked off 5 passes. So they have 5 takeaways on defense the entire year. Now, for a defensive-minded coach like Antonio Pierce, that has to drive him insane. I will say Trevon Moehrig has 2 interceptions. He's the leading interceptor. And Matt, on this very program last Sunday, we said Baker Mayfield versus safety Xavier Woods was one of those key matchups. And what happened to Baker Mayfield? He threw an interception coming off that injured ankle right to Xavier Woods. So Baker Mayfield, when he throws interceptions, it's typically to safeties. He's thrown more picks to safeties this year than anybody else. As long as he avoids Trevon Moehrig, who's actually better against the run than he is in coverage, I think they'll be fine. Baker Mayfield, if he plays turnover-free football today, I don't think there's any way the Raiders can win this game. The only way they win is if Baker gets in the giving mood a little too early. It's not Christmas yet, and ends up with some takeaways or gives the ball over to the Raiders. I think Baker Mayfield has a bounce-back game too. I'm taking Baker.
Yeah, he just needs to play smart. He doesn't need to play hero ball, which has got him into trouble a little bit. We saw it last week. Last up, Mike Evans. Does Mike Evans continue his pace to get 1,000 yards? I think that's the biggest question more than his matchup against DeCamarion Richardson. Does Mike Evans stay on pace for 1,000 yards?
I think so. And the reason why is there's nobody else stepping up. We talked about it last week on the show. The discrepancy between Mike Evans and everybody else in the receiving department, it was just like he was playing, and then like a couple of other guys like, I'll chip in a little bit. There's no 1-2 punch on this team right now. We thought, okay, well, Cade Otton's playing so well that when Mike Evans comes back, it'll be a 1-2 punch with him and Cade with Chris Otton or with Chris Godwin out.
Yeah,
that has not been the case. Cade Otton has dropped a lot of passes.
No,
he got scolded by Liam Cohen for doing that, as he should. They need somebody to step up alongside Mike Evans and be that other guy. And hopefully that happens today. But because it hasn't happened, and I'm not sure it's going to happen, it's Mike and the Miracles. That's really what this offense is in the passing game. It's Mike and the Miracles, right? It's a miracle if somebody else catches a ball. It's a miracle if somebody else scores a touchdown. It really is. It's Mike and the running backs in this team. So, I'm taking Mike Evans. And I think he has 100-plus yards because, gosh darn it, they need it. He's
I
only
apologize for laughing so much, but I think that's a fantastic name / moniker that you gave. My only concern for Mike, like not staying on pace, is if it's kind of a carbon copy of the Giants game, which is, Bucs dominate and they don't technically need Mike, like, once they're up by 20 points and they say, hey, let's rest Mike and make sure him and his hamstring and his knee is good down the stretch, and therefore he doesn't get 100 yards. But overall, I mean, this is Mike all day. There's no question about it. Let's go over to the defensive side. Probably the scariest matchup in this whole game is the Bucs linebackers against Brock Bowers. How do the Bucs stop the Brocket ship?
I love that. The Brocket ship. They don't. You're not going to stop this guy. He is going to get 10 catches, 100 yards today, right? Why? Because Vi Jones is playing, and I like Vi. He's an athletic guy. He's fast, but he has hardly any experience. So he'll play. Maybe Antonio Greer will play a little bit. The Bucs safeties are banged up right now. The middle of the field is going to be wide open today for Aiden O'Connell. So you can't stop Brock Bowers. You can only hope that he doesn't do a lot of damage. And the biggest damage he can do is touchdowns, right? That's where you don't want him to really thrive is getting the ball into the end zone. And that's something that he's done 4 times this year. So if the Buccaneers can play good red zone defense, limit the Raiders to field goals rather than touchdowns, then it really doesn't matter statistically what this guy does. You don't want him to get into the end zone, because when that happens, then all of a sudden what should be, a winnable game gets to be a close game. What should be maybe a blowout ends up being a close game. So in my opinion, this is going to be Brock Bowers' day today. He is going to have the day, but you can't let him get into the end zone. And we saw that last week with the wide receiver, Adam Thielen, getting that touchdown, which put the Panthers in the lead at the very end over J.J. Russell, who was lost in coverage. So J.J.'s out today. KG Britt's out today. It'll be Vi Jones and Antonio Greer playing that position next to Levante David. So we'll see what happens, but I expect Brock will have a big day today.
Yeah, as we talked about earlier on the show, Scott, going back to that Bucs-Lions game, and the Bucs are the only team to beat the Lions this year. And it's funny looking back at that score 20-16 and thinking like, oh my goodness, like the defense showed up for the Bucs. Yeah. Granted, it was week 2. But what was the big difference and part of why the Bucs won that game is that they battened down the hatches in the red zone. They got a bunch of red zone stops, and that's why they beat the Lions. Yeah, it was week 2, but regardless, that is another recipe for the Bucs to win today. You don't want the Raiders getting into the red zone, but if they are, make sure you shut down Brock Bowers in the red zone. I still think he's going to run wild, kind of as he talked about, because the Bucs have been terrible against every tight end this year, let alone, the Travis Kelce's, the Mark Andrews, and, guys like that. So hopefully it's one of those games where, Brock Bowers can pop off, but, the Bucs still do their thing. So that's certainly a matchup to watch. The next one, Bucs cornerbacks against wide receiver Jacoby Myers. I thought Myers had a really good game against the Chiefs on Black Friday for those that watched that game. However, I don't know. I'm pretty high on Zion McCollum and Jamel Dean. So I'll take the corners in this matchup, but what do you think?
I'll take him too. Myers is a little banged up right now, so he might be a game time decision. Yeah. And if he doesn't play, there's a huge drop off, right? I mean, Brock Bowers has 84 catches. The next Raider has 59, and that's Jacoby Myers. So 59 catches, 676 yards, 2 touchdowns for Myers. He's that other guy, right? It's Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers. That is their offense. And if Jacoby Myers doesn't go, or if he's limited today, the next guy is Trey Tucker, 36 catches for 425 yards and a pair of scores. So they just don't have a lot of firepower. Remember, the Raiders traded Davante Adams earlier in the year to the Jets. So they just don't have a lot. So I'm taking the Bucs corners. They'll both get a shot at Myers, whether it's Zion McCollum or Jamel Dean. I like Tampa Bay in this one.
Vita Vea against Raiders center Jackson Powers-Johnson, someone who we talked about a lot during the draft process. What do you think about this one, Scott?
Vita Vea is just playing on another planet right now. He is intergalactic. He is otherworldly. He is it's a travesty, in my opinion, if he does not make the Pro Bowl this year. Right? I mean, he came in to camp in great shape, has played his butt off, has stayed healthy with the exception of missing one game, the Eagles game, only because he had his knee taken out by
Yaya Diaby.
Yeah, it was the Broncos game, actually. Yeah, week 3. But then he bounced back from that, and he's leading this team in sacks right now with 6, along with Kalijah Kancey. So yeah, I think that he is certainly a Pro Bowl caliber player. Jackson Powers-Johnson, I like him better at center than I did at guard when they played him at guard earlier in the year. I just think that the rookie is going to get schooled today by the juggernaut here.
I mean, we haven't seen a two-way player this good since Deion Sanders. Well, Travis Hunter as well, but I don't know. Would you rather have Vita Vea or Travis Hunter? That's a debate for another day.
Yep.
Yaya Diaby against left tackle Colton Miller. I will continue with my stance of show me something, prove me something, Yaya Diaby. Again, 2 sacks, and you recovered a fumble, but I mean, I think that was more right place, right time than, look at him making a play. So
right.
I can't pick Yaya until he proves me wrong. So
I like the pressure.
I'm not happy about it.
I know. I'm with you. I like the pressures Yaya's getting. There's going to be a breakthrough game. We're all waiting for it. We're all anticipating it. It never happens, though, but maybe it happens today. Right. I'm going to give this a push just because I'm with you, Matt. I think that he needs to show that he can get to the quarterback, not just close to the quarterback. So I'm going to give this a push. Colton Miller, good left tackle, really good player for the Raiders.
Yeah, I'm not giving up on like Yaya's career, but for this season, like the ankle injury was in training camp. Like that can't be an excuse
exactly
anymore. But anyway, moving on. Antoine Winfield Jr. against Raiders quarterback Aiden O'Connell. Not the ideal season for Antoine Winfield Jr., but nonetheless, I mean, he's still a great talent against a, relatively inexperienced quarterback.
Yeah, and Winfield, this is a matchup for 2 reasons. Number one, I think he's going to get a sack today. I think he's going to be used in some disguised blitzes, and when he usually comes on a blitz, he gets home. So I like him at least getting a sack today, maybe an interception today. So there's a couple ways that Winfield can hurt you as a defensive back if you're a quarterback, just like Rondé Barber. He could sack you. He could pick you off. He could do both. Maybe Antoine Winfield Jr. does both today, but I like Winfield. It just feels like he has it's almost like we're looking at Mount Winfield here, and he's about to erupt, right? He's a volcano that it's December, it's football season, it's the push for the playoffs. This seems like Antoine Winfield Jr. time. And with so many injuries on defense, they need somebody to put on the Superman cape. And why not this guy? He is the most talented player on defense. Sorry, Vita. This guy was like all-pro last year. But I think Winfield has a big game today. And we'll see how that ends up manifesting itself. But I think we're going to see a big play or 2 from Winfield today. He's really going to make his presence felt.
He's been hibernating.
That's right.
A little bit. But he had the drop interception against the Giants, so I think he comes back from that. Excuse 44 says 31-14. Bat W says 31-20, and then Bat W had a whatever
his was 38-14. We're getting a couple predictions in here. Edward Hernandez 34-17. I think my Pewter prediction was 31-23. It was an 8-point win by the Buccaneers. I think Tampa Bay, they get an early lead. They keep the Raiders at arm's length the whole game. I think Brock Bowers is going to score a touchdown, I think, right? I think it'll be
right. It's fine if he scores if you're up 21-0.
Yeah. I think they'll keep the Raiders at arm's length. They win by more than a touchdown, 8 points today. So that's what I have to score. How about you, Matt?
Yeah, we shall see. Hopefully the Bucs keep their winning streak going and extend it to 3 games. Just a reminder again to everybody that we have the Pewter Game Day show coming up at 1:00. Myself and Josh Capo, we will react live to everything happening in the Bucs versus Raiders game. So hopefully it's a lot of positivity in this game based on the opponent. So I think that's going to do it for us on this morning's show. It's been a lot of fun. We've gone a whole hour talking about Bucs football. So, for Scott Reynolds, I'm Matt Matera saying thanks everybody for watching, and stay tuned. We'll see you soon for another edition of the Pewter Pregame Show. Out.